Day. I'm Dennis Prager. I want to honor it. The theme you hear is that fantastic theme of a fantastic series. I digested it as a kid, Victory at Sea, about the U.S. Navy in World War II. And it meant a lot to me for personal reasons, since my father was in the U.S. Navy in World War II, an officer on a transport ship, and he was in the Pacific for years. I want to talk to you about my father's service in a moment. I'm thinking about growing up with Victory at Sea. I grew up thinking this was a great country. It played a role in my health. When you grow up thinking that you live in a despicable place, it has an effect on you. How could it not? When I think of my childhood and the childhood of, I would say, I don't know, 2/3, 3/4 of American kids today, it's as if we had switched planets. Superman is no longer an American. Superman no longer has, what is the truth, justice, and the American way? It's now truth, justice, and a better way, or something like that. God forbid Superman should celebrate America. These things matter. The nihilistic left, it's purely nihilistic. It's nihilism in its purest form, leftism. Everything is destroyed. Nihilo is Latin for nothing. It's the celebration of nothing. That's a good one. It is what it is. Leftism is the celebration of nothing. It is the destruction of everything and the celebration of nothing. Sometimes I think if my father were alive and he would think, God, this is not what I fought for. I didn't fight for an America that suppresses free speech. You know, this young man or boy, Kyle Rittenhouse, who's so obviously innocent, in a case we'll talk about later, but his GoFundMe account was taken down. GoFundMe has been poisoned by the left. An innocent boy cannot raise funds from the public. Why? What's more American than helping the innocent? But the media smeared him. GoFundMe undoubtedly has many young, woke, sick puppies. And so I can't think of Veterans Day, my father's fighting, and what the America he fought for is becoming. It would have hurt him terribly had he seen it, and he died at 96, smoking a lot of cigars a day. My father joined the service. It's a very, very touching story. I have a lot of my father's personality in me. He marched to the beat of his own drummer. He couldn't watch things happen. He cared about things. He was old enough and married with a child to not be drafted into World War II, into any of the armed services. But he enlisted. And his thinking was, what, I'm going to let some other kid do this fighting? Pure evil from Japan and Germany? And he enlisted and he was immediately made an officer. He had a degree from the City College of New York. I think that's the primary reason, but I don't remember. And he was on a transport ship. He was the officer on a transport ship, taking Marines, and I presume Army, men to the Pacific. Later in the war, the kamikazes tried to sink transports for the very obvious reason. If you can't get troops over to fight, the Japanese won't lose the war. He had no fear. Now, his reason that he told me on a number of occasions for not having any fear was that he believed that God set your day of birth and your day of death. So as far as my father was concerned, if he were at home taking a bath or in the Pacific transporting troops, it didn't matter. What's set is set. I don't have that belief, as it happens. I don't know how much fear I would have as an officer or as anyone else on a transport ship in the Pacific in World War II. I don't know. I tend to loathe fear, and I have worked out ways of conquering it. But I don't know. Until you're put in a certain position, it's very difficult to know how you would act. He loved his time in the Navy. An interesting thing that I've never mentioned about my dad, and I don't know if on his annual appearance on my radio show on his birthday, July 18th, he ever mentioned this. But I think it's just interesting. You'll do with it what you want. So my dad developed a taste for liquor in the war. It was never an issue of alcoholism, not at all. He just loved it. Drank it. Had I think a scotch on the rocks every day. And why did he start? This is the interesting part of the story. He had not had a taste for alcohol prior to the war. And in his summary, he said it was either that or women. And a lot of the guys would go to prostitutes when the ships landed in various places or docked in various places, and he wouldn't because he was married. And his sort of substitute was to have a drink. I think he started cigars in the war too, but I'm not certain. That I do anyway. That alcohol story is one I remember. My dad was a religious Jew, and he had Sabbath services every Friday night on the ship for the Jewish sailors. And he said they treated him, the vast majority, of course, of people and other officers were not Jewish, so they treated me with such respect. And he said the captain of the ship actually had announced that if anybody said anything anti-Semitic on that boat, they would answer to him directly. And he never encountered an anti-Semitic incident in years. Just respect. The ship's chef baked challah, the Sabbath bread. It's a very beautiful, touching story. So those stories had a big impact on this young kid named Dennis. came to love this country at a very early age. Thanks to my father's stories. So I thought I'd share some with you on this Veterans Day, when a Prager 776
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
And forgive me, I'll be a little bit tongue-tied because I'm functioning on a few hours sleep, but I don't mind. I'm so ecstatic I can't see straight. I am so proud of the voters of Virginia. I'm proud of the voters in New Jersey. I'm proud of the voters in Minneapolis rejecting the insanity of abolishing the police department. A wave of sanity swept across the land. We're getting our country back. And you need to sit back and appreciate it. You need to let that soak in. We're taking our country back from the radical crazies who have hijacked it. And you need to enjoy the moment.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
The only way we separate the good ideas from the bad ideas is to be free to say whatever we want about them.
There's no free speech for fascists.
Your posts on Facebook, Twitter, and social media will be saved to shame you.
Creating an atmosphere of fear and repression, and it's gonna bust.
You cannot think differently.
It makes it difficult for you to learn from other people.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
We'll see one young lady identify as transgender, and the next thing you know, 6 or 7 young ladies in that same school are now identifying as transgender.
Children taught at age 5 they can create their gender identity, and it's being celebrated.
Schools are lining up to push the transgender agenda on kids and cut parents out of the equation.
Every cell of their body that has a nucleus is male or female.
We've now seen parents losing custody of their children if they don't go along with this.
We've all been created XY or XX, so that means there's only 2 genders. And so really the battle is against the Creator.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I grew
I want to remind you of a fighter, the Job Creators Network. They fight for small businesses that are being crushed in places like California and all the other states run by Democrats. Remember nihilism, nihilo, believe in nothing, destruction. That's what is being done to this great, great force in American life, small businesses. And Job Creators Network is the greatest advocate. They want you to join them. You don't have to pay anything. It is just they want your name. They want to know that they have a big following. They are the greatest organization for small business in the United States of America. So I ask you to just go to jobcreatorsnetwork.com. That's all you need to do. And see what they're doing and let them know you exist. Thank you. On behalf of the beleaguered small businesses of the United States of America, jobcreatorsnetwork.com. So I grew up, I'm mentioning this on this Veterans Day, I grew up with a father who served for years in the Navy as an officer on a transport ship. He didn't tell stories about it regularly, but he did tell me stories, and we always watched Victory at Sea. We opened up with the theme. I'm sure you could see that on YouTube till they take it down. I truly do believe that anything that depicts America heroically will eventually, if we don't stop it, the left will eventually make it very difficult for us to view. For the left, everything about America is despicable, and everything should be undone. Everything. The universities, the high schools, the elementary schools, the military, sports, the arts, everything. These are the bored secular. Bored, affluent, and secular is a very bad combination. Those are the ingredients of the leftist. Their lives are empty, and they're filled with anger. They're angry at their emptiness. So I, in many ways, feel that I am my father's son, and one of them is that I'm battling for America in my way against a different type of group that wishes to destroy it. And that is sort of my spiritual inheritance from my father. Okay. Let's see here. Tom in Lakewood, California. Hello. Hello, Tom. All right, we'll get Tom later. Thinking about, there are many ways to fight for this country. Right now, we're not at war externally, but we are at war domestically. I would say half the Republican members of Congress do not know this. I don't understand how they don't, but they don't. Almost no liberals understand the threat of leftism to liberalism. That's mind-blowing. Everything they hold and cherish, hold dear and cherish, is being threatened. Free speech, racial integration, color blindness, capitalism, America. Yeah, liberals loved America. Some still do. But they vote for the people who hate it. How do you explain that one? Gregory in Hawley, Pennsylvania. Hello.
Hello, Dennis. So nice to speak with you on my Pure Talk phone.
Yes, that's very nice.
My father had a what's that?
No, I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you.
My my father I have about 5 uncles, and my father was the only one who was 4F. However, he decided that he wanted to do his part. So he joined the USO as it was, and in 1944 was among one of the first group of entertainers to go to Europe and entertain the troops.
How did he entertain? Did he play an instrument? Did he sing?
No, my father was a comic who did burlesque and vaudeville comedy.
Unbelievable. Oh, is that interesting?
And he had a one-man show.
I love it. What a great... That's amazing. His father did a one-man comedy show in burlesque, among other things. That's really great. And he entertained the troops. That's fantastic. Kathleen in San Francisco, hello.
Thank you for taking the call. Yeah. And thanks for observing veterans. I wanted to just give a brief shout-out to my dad. He's deceased. He was a commissioned officer in the Navy for World War II, and he was very proud of that. But as he was dying many years later, we were quite young. I was 8, the youngest was 2, and there were 6 of us. But as he lay dying years later, he said, the one regret I have is that I never served in combat. And I looked at him and I said, Dad, you served in combat. You raised 6 kids without a wife. And he just smiled wryly at me. And I just wanted to honor him today by telling you this little anecdote.
Thank you. You did honor him. Yes. Let's see. I'll give Tom in California one more try. Hello, Tom in Lakewood. Are you there?
Yes, I am. How
right.
are you, Dennis?
Okay, I'm well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Right.
You hit so close to home with that story about your dad. My dad was on a transport ship. He was a chief boatswain's mate, and he was the best dad I ever had. I mean, I can't say anything bad about him. And let me relate one thing about him that it always got me. When I was substituting teaching, I did it at a Christian school, and one of the kids asked me, when you did something wrong, what did you do? I said, well, the vice principal would take me to his office, and he'd give me 2 or 3 swats. And they looked at me in horror, and they said, didn't you tell your dad that? And I looked the kid back in the eye, and I said, you don't tell somebody that shot at Japanese dive bombers during the Second World War.
Oh, God, what a great answer. I have a story on that, too.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. 30 years have passed since Justice Clarence Thomas was confirmed to the U.S. Supreme Court. His tenure there has been consequential indeed. He's the court's foremost proponent of natural law, an understanding that our individual rights are transcendent and come from God. This understanding undergirds his approach to the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, powerfully informing the justice's unyielding commitment to limited government and equal justice before the law. Over the last 5 years, Justice Thomas has authored more opinions than any of his colleagues on the Supreme Court. His influence only continues to grow, and he's beloved by the scores of people who know him. He knows the names of the children of the marshals who guard the courthouse. He's mentored generations of clerks, treating them like family, and his distinctive hearty laugh rings out within his judicial chambers. May God bless this great, good, and brilliant man, and may he serve on the court many years longer.
Streaming on Salem Now.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
Our lunch consisted of whatever my mother could scrape together from the dinner the night before. We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO. Put in an economic growth plan called 999.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Have you ever thought of going to seminary?
Billy Graham.
Gloria a Dios, hermanos. ¿Quién está listo para ser transformado por el poder de su palabra?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
All right. I'm going to get back to veterans and the story that was just told to me was very powerful. Got some swats from the principal, and kids say to him, "What did your father say?" And he said, "I'm going to tell this guy who fought the Japanese in World War II, I got some swats from the principal." I have a very similar attitude. I'll tell you that story later. Let me go to my guest. He's written a very, very important book that just came out. The Original Meaning of the 14th Amendment, Its Letter and Spirit. Two authors, Randy Barnett and Evan Bernick. Randy Barnett is professor of constitutional law at Georgetown University. Evan Bernick is visiting professor of law at Georgetown University. And I have Randy Barnett on. Professor Barnett, welcome to the Dennis Prager Show.
Well, it's great to be on your show, Dennis. I've looking forward to this for a long time.
I'm delighted. Thank you. By the way, I want to salute you. This is the second day in a row that my guest is wearing a jacket and tie. I can't tell you how much that means to me. All right. Anyway, I'm not going to bother you with my theories on clothing. Anyway, welcome. Thank you for writing the book. Tell everybody what the 14th Amendment is before we analyze what's happened to it.
The 14th Amendment is the most important constitutional amendment that no one has heard of. And I know no one's heard of it because I tell people I wrote this book and they say, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that amendment is. If you've ever heard of a First Amendment freedom of speech challenge to a state law, if you've ever heard of a free exercise of religion challenge to a state law, or a right to keep and bear arms challenge to a state law, all those challenges are actually 14th Amendment challenges. Why? Because what we call the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments, did not apply to the states. It only applied to the federal government. And the fundamental rights that apply to the states today do so largely because of the 14th Amendment, which was enacted in 1868 by the Republicans in Congress, who have had previously abolished slavery by means of the 13th Amendment and then confronted a rise of resistance on behalf of white supremacy in the South that was trying as best they could to re-enslave the freedmen, notwithstanding the fact that they were formally free, by the use of black codes in the South, a discriminatory set of laws that would restrict their liberties. And the Republicans in Congress did two things. One is they passed the Civil Rights Act of 1866 to protect these rights as a matter of statute. And then the second thing they did is pass the 14th Amendment to protect these rights as a matter of constitutional law.
Right. So, and the wording of the 14th Amendment, which is relatively brief, correct?
Well, actually, the 14th Amendment is the longest amendment in the Constitution.
Well, I got that wrong.
But it's got 5 sections, and we're really mainly concerned today with Section 1, which defines the rights, and Section 5, which empowers Congress, gives an enumerated power to Congress to enforce the rights that are protected in Section 1. So Section 1 has 4 parts. The first part is the Citizenship Clause, which makes any person born in the United States a citizen of the United States. The second clause is the Privileges or Immunities Clause, which says no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. That was going to be the civil rights protection afforded by this amendment. And then the third and fourth clauses, you know very well, it's the Due Process Clause that says no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without the due process of law, nor deprived of the equal protection of the laws. They said that they have the Due Process of Law Clause and the Equal Protection of Law Clauses. What our book is about is the original meaning of each of these 4 clauses, how they fit together as a coherent whole, how that coherence was completely destroyed when the Supreme Court, 5 years after the amendment was enacted, essentially removed the Privileges or Immunities Clause by holding it meant very little, if anything. And ever since then, we've been working with a distorted version of the 14th Amendment. And finally, we explain why that's important. And finally, we talk about the importance of Section 5, which empowers Congress to protect these fundamental rights from being violated by states.
If the 14th Amendment had not been passed, what would have happened?
What would have happened? Well, what would have happened is in some respects what actually did happen, because the Supreme Court negated the 14th Amendment for a while. And what happened in the absence of the 14th Amendment, and they also invalidated the Civil Rights Act of 1875, which was a public accommodations law passed pursuant to the 14th Amendment. They invalidated that law as unconstitutional. And as a result of those interpretations, we had the rise of Jim Crow in the South.
Okay, that's what I was waiting for. The original meaning of the 14th Amendment. This is a great book and really important. I am reading it because I need to learn. I don't know about it, to be perfectly honest. I admit it. ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384. Needless to say, I took it today. Or I will take it today. I have to be 100% accurate to answer to my conscience. I will be taking it as I do almost every day, but especially if I have any pain in my joint or muscle, which I do every day after I work out. But some people have it chronically. It's so good, you'll know in 3 weeks if it works. Try it for $19.95 for 3 weeks. ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
public would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our politicians are not on the sidewalk right now talking to you?
Don't have no respect.
The old wall randomly turns into a guardrail, followed by miles of open border.
Human trafficking.
That journey is extremely dangerous.
The 7-year-old girl died in the desert.
From the country of India.
A great pillar of the community was killed by a man who had been deported at least twice.
This little urn contains the ashes of my son. His dreams cut short forever.
We're so worried about other countries' problems, and we don't even focus on our own.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
There's about 57 Muslim states in the world. There's one Jewish state.
The massive ingathering of Jews in the last 150 years back to the land is absolutely unprecedented.
They say that there's no greater sign of redemption coming than the Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
As a Christian, I've always supported Israel's claim to the Holy Land. To me, the Palestinians were just getting in the way of God's plan.
300,000 Palestinians are unemployed.
In spite of all the years of conflict, there's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
My late dad, and took some calls, and will continue periodically in the course of the show. One way to honor veterans is to know about our country. And I have my own lacunae, there's gaps, which was obvious when I said that the 14th Amendment was brief, and it turns out to be the longest, and I only knew the beginning of the 14th Amendment. I think everybody needs to take the time to learn the Constitution, to learn the Bill of Rights. That's what we owe our country. Ignorance is a very big reason for the problems that we face. So this is a really important book, The Original Meaning of the 14th Amendment. Randy Barnett and Evan Bernick, two law professors. And I have Randy Barnett on here. So if this had not been passed, that was my last question to you, what would have been possible? And you said Jim Crow laws. So when Jim Crow laws were passed after the 14th Amendment, how did they get away with it?
Because the Supreme Court virtually negated the 14th Amendment, and it didn't start coming back until gradually into the 20th century. So that's what happens when you do away with an amendment using living constitutionalist means. You end up with the absence of constitutional protections. But if I could go back to what you said in the opening, the segment about knowing our constitutional history, I'm a big fan of the founders. All my other books about originalism are about the original meaning of the original Constitution. And I believe they are unfairly criticized for their faults. On the other hand, it's undeniably true that slavery existed at the time of the founding, and those who opposed slavery compromised with those who supported it, and that compromise was put into the Constitution. But the important part of our book, the story we tell, is that the story of our Constitution doesn't end with the founding. It continues on, and it continues on in a struggle against slavery and the subjugation of African Americans with the rise of an anti-slavery movement, which we discuss in our book, who have a view of the Constitution that influences the formation of first the Liberty Party, then the Free Soil Party, and finally the anti-slavery Republican Party, who was successful enough in their second try to win the presidency. And it was winning the presidency with the political constitutional platform they had that drove the South out of the Union before President Lincoln had an opportunity to take office. What eventually the Republicans did is enshrined their anti-slavery, pro-freedom view of the Constitution into the Constitution by means of the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and the 15th Amendment, which protected the right to vote. Those are the Reconstruction Amendments. And so our history is distorted if it's limited to the snapshot of the founding and doesn't continue through to the progress that was made at great human cost. Speaking of veterans, at progress that was made at the cost of hundreds of thousands of American lives to make progress with respect to equality and liberty.
Back to the court, if I may, because this is all a learning process for me, frankly. I love it, but I'm not proud that I'm learning so much. And I'm being just very candid about my own reactions. This is so significant. The Supreme Court for years, decades, you're telling me, essentially negated the 14th Amendment and allowed things like Jim Crow? Did I get you right?
Yeah, well, that's Plessy versus Ferguson, which allowed Jim Crow, was in 1896, and that ignored the 14th Amendment.
Right. So what was there, in a nutshell, because I'm sure you could speak about this at great length, but in a nutshell, what was the gist of the Supreme Court's reasoning?
All right. This was in an 1873 case called the Slaughterhouse Cases. It involved the right of butchers, they were white butchers, to pursue their occupation, and they challenged the creation of a monopoly on slaughterhouses in the city of New Orleans. And they said this violated their right to pursue a lawful occupation, and the Supreme Court held, and they asserted the Privileges or Immunities Clause of the 14th Amendment in support of that right. So let me say what that clause says. It says, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. And what the Supreme Court said in the Slaughterhouse Cases is there is no right to pursue, and there is no privilege of U.S. citizenship to pursue a lawful occupation, so the butchers lose. The next day they said Myra Bradwell, who wanted to practice law in Illinois and said her right was being denied because she was a woman, they said to her, well, there is no right to pursue a lawful occupation, so you lose too. Basically held that the only privileges that the 14th Amendment protected were the ones that were created by the Constitution itself. And because the First Amendment's freedom of speech and the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms were not created by the Constitution, they pre-existed the Constitution. Those were not privileges or immunities of national citizenship, and therefore you were left to be protected only by the states. They could only be protected by the states. And to this day, Dennis, the Privileges or Immunities Clause has only been used once by the Supreme Court, and then once by Justice Thomas in a concurring opinion that applied the right to keep and bear arms to the states. His concurring opinion was based on the Privileges or Immunities Clause, but no other justice, conservative or liberal, would agree with Justice Thomas's concurring opinion, which was the fifth vote in the McDonald versus City of Chicago case.
I don't know what that case is.
That is the case that applies the right to keep and bear arms to the states, because in D.C. versus Heller, the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms was protected against the federal government in the District of Columbia, which is why I can own a gun. But that didn't apply to the states. So any law, as I said at the beginning, that applies to the states has to be done via the 14th Amendment. And that was done in the 2010 case of City of Chicago versus McDonald versus City of Chicago, which said that the right to keep and bear arms applied to states as well as to the federal government via the 14th Amendment.
We just have a minute, unfortunately, but I know what I want to do. I want to read it and then have you back, because
I'll be delighted.
And I thank you for that. It's really
we could do a video together.
Exactly. The original meaning of the 14th Amendment. All right, we don't have a lot of time. I just want to push the book. It is up at DennisPrager.com, everybody. And this also raises other questions I'd like to talk to you about. Originalism versus the living Constitution. I'd love to do that with you. So thank you immensely, Randy Barnett, professor of law, Georgetown. Back in a moment.
Streaming on Salem Now.
There's about 57 Muslim states in the world. There's one Jewish state.
The massive ingathering of Jews in the last 150 years back to the land is absolutely unprecedented.
They say that there's no greater sign of redemption coming than the Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
As a Christian, I've always supported Israel's claim to the Holy Land. To me, the Palestinians were just getting in the way of God's plan.
300,000 Palestinians are unemployed.
In spite of all the years of conflict, there's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Judge Thomas, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I was under constant attack. You're not really black because you're not doing what we expect black people to do. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
You know, I take most American holidays very seriously. Most Americans don't. Another tragedy of our time. I don't take President's Day seriously. It's a mockery of Washington and Lincoln. We had Washington's birthday when I was a kid, Lincoln's birthday. They were holidays. Every kid, everyone my generation knows the birthdays of Lincoln and Washington. February 12th, February 23, or is it February 22? Oh, there you go. It's either February 22 or 23. I think it's 12 and 22. Check it out, would you? What's Washington? Is it 22? Anyway, we all know it within a day. No kids today know it. They would even wonder why anybody would celebrate it. Got a lot of important calls actually on this. Let's see here. Yeah, that's right. So I was right. 22nd. Yeah. Okay, I was right when I corrected myself. Michael in Elmhurst, Illinois. Hello.
Hey, Dennis, what's going on? How you doing today?
I'm well, thank you.
Hey, good to hear. So, yeah, I just wanted to call. You know, it's an important day today for me and a lot of others out there, and specifically yesterday. Happy belated birthday to all the Marines out there, especially the infantry riflemen, the combat veterans. I myself served 2 tours in Afghanistan, and I'm a combat veteran. Thank you for your dad's service. You know, that's a complete different generation than what we have now. I mean, even in the military, it's quite sad. So, you know, it's what do we do when you've got grown men who, you know, can't stand up and fight for what's right? It's sad.
It is indeed. God bless you for your service. I wrote a column on it. I broadcast about it. We should never have left Afghanistan. Obviously not the way we did, but we should not have left completely anyway. Any country where American troops are stationed has been blessed. Germany, Japan, South Korea. It's an amazing thing. I don't know if you could say that about other troops. So I say that about ours. I'm trying to hear the words. When liberty is in jeopardy, what was the rest of that? They'll always do what's right. Well, liberty is in jeopardy in this country for the first time in our history. Many ways to fight for this country. And if you don't fight, please help the fighters. That's my motto. We'll return. I'm Dennis Prager on this Veterans Day.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Judge Thomas, you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. I was under constant attack. You're not really black because you're not doing what we expect black people to do. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans.
At a time where there's so much negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
How buoyed are you that Americans are finally waking up, JD?
Look, I'm very excited about what I'm seeing. Certainly in Virginia, but also in Ohio. It feels like there's a real grassroots movement brewing on the conservative movement right now. And it's, just like in times past, it's not just the politicos, it's not just the establishment folks. Sometimes not even people who are that political, but they're just very fired up about what their kids are teaching. Their kids are coming home crying, upset because they're being told that they're a bad person depending on the color of their skin, and they're just fed up about it. And I think it may very well take down Terry McAuliffe, but I certainly think it is the beginning of a movement all across this country that's going to take down a lot of Democrats all over the nation.
In the break, we were talking to my team here, and somebody said, "Well, it's neck and neck, and if Glenn loses by 3 points, that's a big deal in any other normal election." And here's the reaction I have, JD. there is no such thing as a normal election after 2016. Do we have any faith that there will be a normal election? Talk to us about the recent breaking news about Facebook and the censorship of conservatives. You've written a piece about it. How do we get back to quote unquote normal, JD?
Oh man, we got a lot of work to do. Facebook did two things basically in the 2020 election, one of which we've known about for a while. They basically censored information that was negative about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. They promoted information that was negative about Donald Trump. And I really believe that swung the election in a really important way.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Just remember this, I ran against Donald Trump. News bulletin, his opponent is named Glenn Youngkin, not Donald Trump.
And Terry is running against an acolyte of Donald Trump. Terry's opponent has made all of his private pledges of loyalty to Donald Trump. But what's really interesting to me, he won't stand next to Donald Trump now that the campaign's on. Think about it. He won't allow Donald Trump to campaign for him in this state. And he's willing to pledge his loyalty to Trump in private. Why not in public? What's he trying to hide? Is there a problem with Trump being here? Is he embarrassed?
Sigh. So you can't stand Trump. You think Trump is a bigger enemy than China, than Islamofascism. And you're also chastising him for not wanting Donald Trump to campaign for him. So which one do you want? What do you want? And again, for you independents and Democrats who hate Donald Trump, please give me a call. 888-971-7243. Are you happy with the borders right now? I know you thought Donald Trump was unfair and harsh and all that. Are you happy there have been almost 2 million attempted crossing the border so far this year? More than what, in 30 years? Are you happy with this critical race theory stuff? Are you happy with the inflation? Are you happy that he shut down the Keystone Pipeline, costing countless union jobs? Are you happy with the vaccine mandates?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
You called your son. You personally promised him you would be here.
Lucas, I don't know how to help you.
Your daddy loves you, you gotta know it, pal.
Prayer is a powerful thing, Ethan. It really does work, if you believe.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dennis Prager. It is Veterans Day, and I take it seriously. I talked a lot about my dad in the Navy. I did not serve in Vietnam. I had a student deferment, and then I had, because of asthma, which plagued my childhood and youth, I had I think it was 1Y, so I would be called up in specific emergencies. And that gnawed at me all of my life, because my peers were dying in Vietnam, and I wasn't there. And I thought about that a tremendous amount in my 20s. And I think it's one of the reasons that I decided to devote my life to this country in a different way and fight for it. I think it was an animating factor. Anyway, I thought what you should know about that, but of course my dad I spoke about was in the Navy during the war, and it was something we watched. Victory at Sea. Richard Rodgers was the composer of that fantastic theme. And as I said in the opening of the show, it was a different America that I grew up in, where you were proud to be an American. The left has substituted race for nationality. So now you're proud to be non-white. You're proud to be black. You're proud to be Hispanic. You're proud to be Asian American. You're proud to be, and you fill it in, proud to be gay is massive Gay Pride Day. You're proud to be transgender, but you're not proud to be American. Isn't that interesting? As if there's anything to be proud of in anything that I just mentioned. What is there to be proud of with regard to what you're born? Well, you're born American, but American is an idea. It's not an ethnicity. It's not a race. Am I proud to be white? It's an absurdity. It has no impact on my thinking. So what are kids given to be proud of? Not even proud, which I don't think there would be reason. You're not proud to be a male. You're not proud to be a female, because that's a binary understanding of gender. Yeah, it was a very special thing to be an American. I got a letter here sent. It's not sent to me. Well, let's see. Was it sent? Yeah, it was sent to me. Yeah. Let's see. This was sent to me, forwarded to me by a friend of mine. Dear Mr. Prager, I'm an Army infantryman serving with the 3rd Infantry Division. I already had COVID-19, and according to Army Regulation 40-562, due to prior immunity to the disease, I am not required to be forced to receive the Pfizer shot. My commander verified the regulation was still active and agreed I was not misunderstanding and therefore misapplying the regulation to my situation. Regardless, the brigade surgeon denied my request to be exempt from the vaccine in direct violation of the aforementioned regulation. I was told if I cared about science, I'd take the shot. That's a bizarre thing. If you care about science, why would you take the shot if you've already had COVID? I ignored the insult and attempted to appeal the refusal by receiving a second opinion. On October 7th, I was informed by my commander I would not be allowed to pursue a second opinion or be permitted to appeal the refusal to the next level in my chain of command. I would either comply or be punished in the following manner. 1, recommendation for a field grade Article 15, punishments possible with the USMJ, including a demotion to the lowest rank in the Army, forfeiture of half my basic pay, and extra duty for up to 45 days. 2, GOMAR, G-O-M-A-R, a general officer memorandum of reprimand. This is a severe, sometimes permanent admonition by a soldier's commander. 3, involuntary separation from the military. They said I could receive an other than honorable discharge status. I am being treated like a guy who got caught smoking crack in the barracks, as if I had refused a lawful order to train or to deploy. Initially, they threatened us with jail time and a full court-martial. We stood up to them anyway. I have a wife and 2 children. I wanted nothing more than for Army regulations to be fairly applied to me, but my case was treated with contempt by all but my company commander. 3 other guys in my unit are going through the same thing. I think Americans need to know about this. The military is a perfect example of how a government will treat a people who have volunteered to give up their freedoms. Once you allow any government this kind of power, your rights are just paperwork they can easily manipulate for their own purposes. Yes, Americans do need to know about this. I'm going to read that again. The military is a perfect example of how a government will treat a people who have volunteered to give up their freedoms. Once you allow any government this kind of power, your rights are just paperwork they can easily manipulate for their own purposes. In closing, my last real defense against all this is to refuse to submit to Article 15 and demand a court-martial, which could end in me losing and becoming a criminal under Article 92 USMJ. I've listened to you since I was 12 years old. You've been a father figure to me. I joined the military because I thought America was still worth serving and fighting for. Now I realize the old light has died. It's just paperwork and politics now. I don't know if he wanted his name read on the air. So, Justin, who sent this to me, let me know if he wants his name on the air. You won't take a shot and they will punish you like this in the Army, in the U.S. military? An other than honorable discharge? You've done everything you have been ordered to do? You have volunteered to fight for this country, but you didn't take a G-damn vaccine and had COVID to boot? Read my column this week on immunity, natural immunity versus vaccine. Yes. I'm looking on the internet at more attacks on me. I'll read you the comments later. Again, I was asked about Aaron Rodgers. That's his name, right? Of the Green Bay Packers on Newsmax. And I mentioned that if it would have been inconceivable to have gays who were pariahs, but to have them in the pariah state that the unvaccinated is, we would never have allowed that. And correctly so, I said. It would have been disgusting to treat gays this way. I affirmed that gays were, for a time, pariahs because of AIDS. And there is a desire on the part of the left to own victimhood. That's what this is all about. I had the audacity to say that it's mostly conservatives who won't take the vaccine, that they could have a pariah status that is analogous to the pariah status of gays. They have to own pariah status. Nobody can compete with them. That's what this is about. That's the anger that is being expressed. We'll be back.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
The public would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our politicians are not on the sidewalk right now talking to you?
Don't have no respect.
The old wall randomly turns into a guardrail, followed by miles of open border.
Human trafficking.
That journey is extremely dangerous.
The 7-year-old girl died in the desert.
From the country of India.
A great pillar of the community was killed by a man who had been deported at least twice.
This little urn contains the ashes of my son. His dreams cut short forever.
We're so worried about other countries' problems, and we don't even focus on our own.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
There's about 57 Muslim states in the world. There's one Jewish state.
The massive ingathering of Jews in the last 150 years back to the land is absolutely unprecedented.
They say that there's no greater sign of redemption coming than the Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
As a Christian, I've always supported Israel's claim to the Holy Land. To me, the Palestinians were just getting in the way of God's plan.
300,000 Palestinians are unemployed.
In spite of all the years of conflict, there's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime.
I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
All right, everybody. Well, look, I got calls from all over the country, on either from veterans or behalf of veterans. And I want to thank you for calling. I can't take all the calls. Obviously, I could do this for a week, just take calls. Thank God, because there are so many wonderful people who have served. The military is in a crisis because the left has infiltrated that like they have our universities, high schools, elementary schools. And it's very disturbing. And now the war on the wonderful members of the military who won't take the vaccine. What has exactly happened since they've already been in the service for almost 2 years now, non-vaccinated, and almost 2 years of the virus around? What exactly has happened? Has there been an outbreak of sickness and death in the military? What is the reason for pushing these people to have vaccines? Forcing them and getting rid of some of our very best. I would argue that disproportionately, the members of the military who don't want to be vaccinated are the toughest, most loyal, best soldiers, sailors, etc., that we have. I'm sure of course there are great ones who have been vaccinated as well, no question. But you really want to get rid of these people? You want to have a non-honorable discharge if you kick them out? You want to cut their pay, cut their pension? So they wouldn't take this vaccine? These are healthy people in their 20s. How many people in their 20s have died from COVID? Compare the number of people who've died from drug overdoses or probably car accidents in their 20s. Let me look up death by age. I mean, I want you to understand here, COVID deaths by age, USA. Okay, let's see here. Statista, that's one of those that I use. All right, okay, yes, here we go. Ready? So, according to this, what have we had, according to the CDC? 700,000 deaths, something like that, 750,000. 18 to 29 years, 4,288. 4,288. All right, now let's look up. I mean, just to give you an idea, 75 to 84 years of age, 194,000. That age group is 4,288. All right? And now let's look up deaths from car accidents by age. Let's see if we can get that. Okay, so deaths by age group, injury facts. Let's see, how do we have here? Let's see. Unfortunately, it gives it from 1913 to 2019. All right, I'll get it up later. This is it'd be obviously an interesting thing. Anyway, it is so rare to be killed by COVID, and it is not happening in the armed forces. So it bothers me. Anyway, to Tony, Linda, Mike, Bob, Nick, Jim, and Tammy, I want to thank you for your calls, for your stories that I would love to hear. I want you to now understand the battle is in the United States. The battle for the United States is in the United States. I'd like to play for you. Do we have the time to play the Columbia University thing, Sean? Yes, so this is a video produced by Columbia University for its students. You know what? I want to follow along with it, Sean. So let me get it up in the mail here. This is a video given to the students of Columbia, using wrong pronouns violates non-discrimination policy. Okay, let's get it up here. Okay, take it away, Sean.
Pronouns are used in place of a person's name. While many use she, her, and he, him pronouns, a growing number are using other pronouns like they, them, ze, them, ze, here, per, pers, and am.
By the way, this is a growing number. Do you know anybody who's using em, per, pers, ze, them? A growing number doesn't mean anything. A growing number, if it goes from 1 to 2, is a growing number. In fact, it's an increase of 100%. Go on.
Z here, per, pers, and am.
Some people are comfortable with multiple pronouns, regardless of their gender, identity, or expression. If someone's pronouns are she, they, that's just a quicker way to indicate that a person uses she, her, hers, and they, them, theirs pronouns. Others do not use pronouns for themselves and wish only to be referred to by their name.
You can't know a person's gender by just looking at them. Asking for and using correct pronouns.
So that's an interesting thing. You don't know a person's gender by looking at them. Well, this is where the difficulty, the moral difficulty, comes in. See, I've told this story a number of times. I conduct orchestras. One of the orchestras I conducted many years ago, the timpanist, that is the person who plays the timpani, the drums, was a woman, and an attractive woman at that. And thank you. And after a rehearsal, I mentioned to the permanent conductor of the orchestra, wow, it's pretty rare to see a female timpanist. And he said to me, well, as it happens, this person is a transsexual. That was the term used then. She was a he and became a she. Now, I, even then, of course, referred to her as her. I don't care what you start out as. That is your business, not my business. But I do care about how you look today. If you have a beard and wear a dress, I will not say she. I will not, or they. I don't want to confuse the society about there not being a distinction. Back in a moment.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Burka.
How buoyed are you that Americans are finally waking up, JD?
Look, I'm very excited about what I'm seeing. Certainly in Virginia, but also in Ohio. It feels like there's a real grassroots movement brewing on the conservative movement right now. And it's, just like in times past, it's not just the politicos, it's not just the establishment folks. Sometimes not even people who are that political, but they're just very fired up about what their kids are teaching. Their kids are coming home crying, upset because they're being told that they're a bad person depending on the color of their skin, and they're just fed up about it. And I think it may very well take down Terry McAuliffe, but I certainly think it is the beginning of a movement all across this country that's going to take down a lot of Democrats all over the nation.
In the break, we were talking to my team here, and somebody said, "Well, it's neck and neck, and if Glenn loses by 3 points, that's a big deal in any other normal election." And here's the reaction I have, JD. There is no such thing as a normal election after 2016. Do we have any faith that there will be a normal election? Talk to us about the recent breaking news about Facebook and the censorship of conservatives. You've written a piece about it. How do we get back to quote unquote normal, JD?
Oh man, we got a lot of work to do. Facebook did two things basically in the 2020 election, one of which we've known about for a while. They basically censored information that was negative about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. They promoted information that was negative about Donald Trump. And I really believe that swung the election in a really important way.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
You called your son. You personally promised him you would be here.
Lucas, I don't know how to help you.
Your daddy loves you. You gotta know it, pal.
Prayer is a powerful thing, Ethan. It really does work, if you believe.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America. You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
You ever thought of going to seminary?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Okay, everybody, thank you for the Marine song, and we continue. I've been playing for you a video issued by Columbia to all of its students, Columbia University, which unbelievably has not changed its name because it's named after Columbus. And they don't celebrate Columbus Day, but they do celebrate Columbus. That is their name. But it's too much money involved in keeping the name Columbia, too much prestige. So that they keep, named after a man they consider a butcher, a genocidal maniac. Amazing, isn't that something? That's where I attended, Genocidal Maniac University for graduate school. All right, please continue.
You can't know a person's gender by just looking at them. Asking for and using correct pronouns is a way to respect those around you and create an inclusive environment.
So hold on. So a Columbia student, I'm being completely serious here, should ask anyone they meet at Columbia, what is your preferred pronoun? That is sort of instead of or in addition to, how are you? What is your preferred pronoun? This is chaos. We are living in the age of chaos. It's deliberately creating chaos. Continue, please.
This is especially important for queer and transgender people. If you slip up and use the wrong pronouns, simply correct your mistake and move on. Intentionally misgendering someone by refusing to use the correct pronouns or name is a violation of the Columbia University non-discrimination policy. Words matter. Even unintentional errors can create challenges. Research shows that using someone's correct pronouns has a big impact on their mental health and well-being.
Normalizing pronoun sharing helps create a safer space for people of all genders and gender expressions. So, in introductions, share your own pronouns first. Use pronouns with your name in meetings and on name tags. And add your pronouns and this video to your email signatures in your bio and in chat. Together, we can create a more inclusive Columbia community for all those around us.
Well, there you go. To be honest, I would not refer to someone as they. I believe that the world is divided between he and she. I respect the fact that there are people who do not identify as a he or she, but I will not change the human division that is built in because an individual has that issue. You are not they. There's no they. Spoke about a year ago to one of a terrific professor. She is gay, but she is an independent thinker and has, as a liberal gay, attacked the left tremendous amount and very effectively. She said, she was very open with me, and she said, you know, the truth is I don't really identify as either male or female. But she said, I am she to people. She doesn't adopt they because she feels an obligation to society not to mess around with the male-female division, not to confuse children. Oh, you're not a boy or a girl. You'll choose whether you're a boy or a girl or neither or both. That's the difference between a liberal and a leftist, if you will, or at least a liberal with courage, which is a very rare thing to find. It made a big impact on me. I did not know that she did not personally in herself identify particularly as a female. But she has a female name, she dresses as a female, she acts in ways that you would identify with a female. She doesn't want to mess around with the human race for some narcissistic reason. Sean? I want to tell you about a fantastic product. Nerve Renew. I asked them to advertise. You know, a lot of people, if you don't have this, you're lucky, but a lot of people have numbness and or tingling in their extremities, hands and or feet. I've had it in my feet much of my life, sort of genetic, and I actually had great help after many years with inserts made for my feet. Then I took Nerve Renew, and about a year later, or 10 months later, I threw away the inserts. I have not been wearing them since. Try it for 2 weeks for free, 1 year money-back guarantee. Try NerveRenew.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
If you can stop an earthquake, doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
There's about 57 Muslim states in the world. There's one Jewish state.
The massive ingathering of Jews in the last 150 years back to the land is absolutely unprecedented.
They say that there's no greater sign of redemption coming than the Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
As a Christian, I've always supported Israel's claim to the Holy Land. To me, the Palestinians were just getting in the way of God's plan.
300,000 Palestinians are unemployed.
In spite of all the years of conflict, there's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
So who wins when there is a clash on the left between separate preferred activist groups? Who gets preference? Who wins? Now, on the left, they have a hierarchy. Not any different than a hierarchy that you'd have in any sort of organization. You see, when the left has a moment of disagreement or conflict, it is very important to realize that there is a structure of what matters more than something else.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager here. Paul in Columbus, Ohio, another city named after a monster. How come they didn't change the name, Paul?
I don't know, but they did take down the giant statue in City Hall and move it to a park. So the effort's on.
Okay, so the statue is forbidden, but the name stays.
Right. I guess, it's on all our stationery, and the post office probably would complain. We're up to almost 1 million in population here, and for the post office to change, I think would be pretty difficult.
Yeah, but if the guy's a genocidal monster,
Yeah, it's justified, yeah. Sure.
Yeah. All right, I'm sorry. What'd you call up for? You called up on a different subject. Go ahead.
Yes, well, they is very important. I'm an attorney. I've been a prosecutor and defense attorney. I've been 50 years involved with law enforcement and review police reports all the time. So if a victim says, they robbed me, they raped me, they did this, I mean, it's important to know the number of offenders. It's either plural or it's singular. And if it's a single person that's attacked you or a group of people, that's the first thing we look for is the number of offenders, if there are multiple offenders, in a police report. So they versus he or she, and of course identification of a suspect is so important in law enforcement that he or she is also very important. So I think the destruction and substitution of those is going to end up very confusing if it grows into the point where law enforcement has to determine what to use.
Right. They raped me, or they beat me up or whatever, or they tried to kill me, at Columbia University may refer to one person.
Right. So it's going to end up very confusing to somebody in law enforcement.
Well, I don't.
Looking for
yes.
a group of two people.
Well, I don't understand.
Forgive
me. I don't understand regarding law enforcement. What do they do? If I hand you my license and it says under sex, it says the opposite of what I look. Of what good is it to the policeman? We're looking for a male suspect in a hit and run accident, in a hit and run crime, actually, and then they pick up somebody and says, "But I'm female, so I can't possibly be your suspect."
Well, of course, that would apply across the board to rape, robbery, burglary.
Yeah, anything. Yes.
Anytime you're looking for a suspect. I guess what you have to do then, if there's confusion, is you have to try, and you're going to do that anyway, go to clothing, facial hair, length of hair, other identifiers to try and find out if this person is legitimately your suspect.
Yeah. All right. Listen, I'm glad you listened and glad you called. Jeff in Irvine, California. Hello.
Hey, Dennis. How are you?
Okay.
So I have here, a buddy of mine is a sociologist and teaches at Kent State University, teaches and works there both. And he several years ago, and I was thinking of you because we were talking about something similar at the time. I had him send it to me, so I can send this to you. It's actually printed out from Kent State University. It's called Flashes of Pride, and it's the Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Student Center. And there's pictures of all these people and their name and what they identify with sexually, I guess. So this is, and there's actually a Facebook address on here and everything, but, and they want people to know how they are referred to. So we have gay, demi-boy, trans man, non-binary lesbian, queer. I don't know what this one is.
No. That's not possible. You can't be a non-binary lesbian.
Yeah.
No. I'm trying to figure. No, seriously, I'm trying to figure that. Non-binary means I don't identify with either sex.
With anything.
But a lesbian is a female who wants a female. So you can't be a non-binary lesbian. You know. All right. Anyway, thank you. It's reaffirming the point that I made earlier was you are not just can, you are to be proud to be bisexual. But you are not to be proud to be American. This is the way a generation is being raised, and people continue to send their kids to college and high school and elementary school. There is a study, by the way, just come out, and I think I can find it here. Yep, Wall Street Journal. And this study is from a Harvard professor. Two Harvard professors, actually. Research associates at Harvard's Human Flourishing Program. It's in the Wall Street Journal today. What homeschoolers are doing right. A new study suggests their kids are healthier, happier, and more virtuous than public school graduates. Have you heard that from someone on the radio for the last 30 years? The homeschoolers in our sample were 23% less likely to attend college than public school students. See, it's a very honest study. This may reflect lower attainment in learning or less interest in attending college, but it may also be a result of admissions policies at some U.S. universities that disadvantage homeschooled students. I don't think it has anything to do with attainment and learning. I'll put up the average homeschool student to the average high school student with regard to learning any day. I think that it is that their value system does not value college. And they shouldn't. Colleges, well, you just heard the Columbia video. Colleges are awful today. They're awful.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America. You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
We understand that a plane has crashed into...
The people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Biggest and most costly manhunt in U.S. history.
United States killed Osama bin Laden.
There are reports surfacing that Al-Qaeda has placed a $50,000 bounty on the heads of any U.S. Navy SEALs.
Nobody's going to survive that. There's nobody in that.
This is the single largest loss of life in Afghanistan in a single incident.
Most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
We discovered bullets in the bodies of the Navy SEALs. The military threw them away.
More likely than not, that supports a shootout on board.
Anybody out there, we have a fallen angel.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime.
I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Fiance? No, I can't be your fiance.
You're gonna go. You're gonna be my fiance, and you're gonna be the most amazing, fascinating, most successful man ever. We're only gonna be there for a few hours, eat dinner, and I promise we'll have the best breakup of all time.
My baby, my princess. Oh, yeah.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Yes, indeed. Talking about a lot of things, but remembering Veterans Day. I started last hour with my dad, an officer on a naval transport taking troops to the Pacific. He actually regarded, he's passed away, he died at 96 years of age. And by the way, mind completely 100% intact. He reminds me of the oldest World War II veteran who died a couple of years ago, I think in Texas, because it was the Dallas Morning News that reported on him. And he was over 100, and I don't remember exactly, but he was the oldest World War II veteran living, and it's a black guy. And I just note that because it may be of interest to you. 111. Wow. Richard Overton, asked, I think, by the Dallas Morning News what the secret to longevity was.
I smoke at least 12 cigars a day on my
Is that what he said? Oh, so that's it. All right. So I remember him answering God and cigars, and I thought if that's true, I'm in good shape because God and cigars are very important to me. But anyway, tell me exactly what you read when he amplified on that. I smoke at least 12 cigars a day on my front porch, and most of my whiskey is from Tennessee. This man is really my hero. What is it, Richard Overton? Richard Overton. May you rest in peace. I'm sure he is. 12 cigars. I don't smoke. I smoke 2 cigars a day. Sometimes 1. On the road, sometimes none. For the people who think you're addicted to cigars, which I've never heard of in my life, there's addiction to cigarettes because of nicotine. Just so you'll know, there are times I have gone weeks, like on cruises, when they did that without a cigar, and somehow I survive it. He died in 2018. Yes, 112. He reached 112. There's a curse, though. You know, interesting, like in life, every blessing comes with a curse. It's one of my theories of life. And there is a curse to living that long because all your peers have died. All your friends have died. It's hard to imagine. I mean, think about all your friends are no longer living. Comes with a price, long life. Everything comes with a price. It's a very important thing to remember. Asking what is the price is the essence of the conservative outlook on life.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
God has smiled on me. God has smiled upon me to be able to live most of my life in Florida, to be able to spend most of my days and about 90% of the pandemic, the first year and a half of the pandemic. And when I kept hearing about the misery of my friends in California and friends and family in New York and New Jersey, and I had the benefit of going back and forth a little bit. I saw the apocalyptic New York City. I mean, it was bad. It was horrible. Well, guess what? It was never that way in Florida. Never even came close. Ron DeSantis is a hero. Ron DeSantis is a true leader. And Ron DeSantis, and this is what happens when voters deliver somebody like Ron DeSantis. This is what Virginia can do next week with Glenn Youngkin. You think Terry McAuliffe is a fan of lockdowns? You bet your sweet fanny he is. You think Terry McAuliffe wants to tell parents to butt out of their kids' education? You bet your sweet butt he does. You think Terry McAuliffe is an out-of-touch, tyrannical, dictatorial Democrat? You bet he is. The metaphor of the two states, New York and Florida, that I got to experience over the last couple of years is a perfect metaphor for the difference between Republican and Democrat leadership.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
How many people have you engaged with in the last, 6 months who are new to you, who didn't see themselves as Republicans, but who said, this is crazy, I've got to step up to the plate? How many new faces have there been, Patty?
So many, Sebastian. Even this morning, I had a former Democrat that wants to get involved with our Republican Women's Club on a marketing basis. And she said she doesn't recognize the Democrat Party anymore, and she wants to help us. So I probably have 10 women that used to be registered Democrat that now joined our club. We have people signing the recall petitions that are Democrats. That's why this is such an amazing issue, education. You don't mess with our children. You don't push your indoctrination on them. So I have reached so many new faces, new people. Now, I have to be honest, majority of it has been conservative. But, Sebastian, I've been targeted by the left after I've done some other media, and the ugliness and the evil that they stoke on me is really appalling. So I feel bad for these people that they're not realizing that all we're doing is putting our children first. We want hard work and merit to be the reason our children do well in school. We don't believe that race and gender should be the forefront of whether a child does well in school.
Yeah, and we are not going to put up with school boards and superintendents hiding and covering up for rapes in our schools. That's why you're fighting. God bless you. We need more people like Patty Hidalgo Mendez. If you're in Loudoun County, join the Republican Women's Club. God bless you and every single one in the Commonwealth like you.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Fine. I'm talking about Republican Glenn Youngkin taking back Virginia, leading to a sweep of the purple state, a blue state actually, into the red column. Not only Glenn Youngkin in a handily amassed victory, exactly as he planned it, exactly as he said it would come together, hold the margins down in Northern Virginia, sweep the central and southwestern and southeastern parts of it. Hampton Roads, a very big winning, Virginia Beach, a very big win for him. It was really repulsion at the school districts, repulsion at CRT, repulsion at Terry McAuliffe's trying to play a race card. So it's just a victory night. Let's go with Winsome Sears. You may not know Winsome. She is the first African-American woman elected to statewide office in the Commonwealth of Virginia. She was running alongside of Glenn Youngkin. I just want to begin with her because MSNBC didn't carry her speech last night, and it's a fine speech, and you should have heard it. Cut 26.
There are some who want to divide us, and we must not let that happen. They would like us to believe we are back in 1963 when my father came. We can live where we want. We can eat where we want. We own the water fountains. We have had a black president elected not once but twice, and here I am, living proof. In case you haven't noticed, I am black, and I have been black all my life.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America. You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
All right, everybody. Dennis Prager here. I just discovered it's fascinating, the echo chamber of the left. So I have gone through this a number of times in my life, and the first time it happens to you, you don't really know how to handle it. It's true about almost any first. So when you are the center of attention of those who hate you, which is the mainstream media, you go, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then by the fourth time, fifth time, you don't do anything except actually publicize, which I have the ability to do, their attacks to give you an idea of how intellectually dishonest these people are. So again, on Newsmax, I was asked about Aaron Rodgers and about the unvaccinated, and what I said, let's see here, it's all we have. I need help here. I'm trying to find my tweet. Okay, here we go. So here it is. So this is what I said on Newsmax. During the AIDS crisis, can you imagine if gay men and intravenous drug users, who were the vast majority of people with AIDS, had they been pariahs the way the non-vaccinated are? Was there a ban on gay men? So that was what I said, but actually I said more than that. I should have put the rest on my. I said that it would have been, oh yes, here we go. But it would have been inconceivable, and it should have been inconceivable. They should not have been made pariahs. So is it clear that I said the following? Gays were pariahs, and they should not have been made pariahs, but it is okay to make the unvaccinated pariahs. The entire left-wing world that has covered this, The Advocate, the biggest gay magazine, The Independent, Slate, all of them, now MSNBC, Dennis Prager denies that gays were pariahs. It's a lie. It's 100% lie. I said that they were not pariahs like the unvaccinated. As I add in my in my tweet on this, they drop, and it should have been inconceivable. They should not have been made pariahs. They all dropped that, except Mediaite, to its credit, which I noted. They dropped the end of my comments. Now listen to MSNBC. I just saw this. So 1 minute, I have to find it myself. It's very difficult. 1 minute. Okay. All right, give me 27 seconds, Sean, until the ad on MSNBC. This is MSNBC covering me. They put me up, but they drop the last sentences. They don't. You can watch my mouth still moving, but they drop the sound. The liars at MSNBC. This is how the left deals. This is why I am dealing with this. Not because it's about me, but because it'll give you an idea. All right, here we go.
National fears, whether it is of the non-vaccinated who are the pariahs of America, as I have not seen in my lifetime any pariah group like this. During the AIDS crisis, can you imagine if gay men and intravenous drug users, who were the vast majority of people with AIDS, had they been pariahs the way the non-vaccinated are? But it would have been inconceivable.
Now, here's the thing.
Can you imagine?
Now, wait. Hold on a second. So they stop it there. You could see my mouth saying more things afterwards, but they don't play it on the lying shows of MSNBC. This is so critical. It would have taken 4 more seconds to play the end of what I said, where I said, and it should have been inconceivable. They should not have been made pariahs. They dropped it on MSNBC. They're liars. You know why they're liars? Because they're leftists. There's no other reason. It has nothing to do. It's not that they hate me. They hate me. They hate all conservatives. And they just lie. This is a classic example. All right, let's hear the comment. What is this guy's name? Reed?
No, it's the Reed out, the Joy Reid show. This guy is Michael Harriet.
Oh, he's Michael Harriet, but it's the Joy Reid show. What is he? Is he sitting in for? Okay, fine. Okay, go ahead.
Radio talk show host Dennis Prager swearing that COVID anti-vaxxers have suffered a worse fate than gay men and IV drug users during the AIDS epidemic.
That's right.
But
Hold on. Yes, that's exactly right. There are no mandates that you fire tens of thousands of gays. They can't make a living. They lose their pensions. In Canada, were gays banned from flying? What you have on the left is the audacity of the right to claim that a left-wing group or a group that the left supports, to be more precise. Gays are not a left-wing group. Gays are mixed politically. But they have a monopoly on suffering. The non-vaccinated, they're not suffering. No, not at all. The potential of all of them being fired in any company that has over 100 employees, that's not suffering. Only gays suffered in the 80s. And I didn't deny, I said that they were pariahs. I don't deny their suffering. I mean, I'm giving an analogy. Okay, continue.
Different story. While AIDS was first identified in 1981, President Ronald Reagan didn't publicly acknowledge the disease until 4 years later. At that time, some called it the, quote, gay cancer. Homophobic and demonizing headlines were splashed across the front pages of papers around the globe. The religious right considered it some sort of divine punishment for the alleged sins of gay people.
AIDS generally caused and believed to be caused by homosexual promiscuity. We pay the price when we violate the laws of God.
Many people with HIV were shunned by their families and rejected by society. Thousands more were left to die alone.
By the way, that is true, and it is awful. It wasn't because primarily of anti-gay animus. It was fear of AIDS. They didn't know how it was transmitted, and they were deeply afraid. And this is not an excuse, but if you want to be honest, which the left never wants to be, truth is not a left-wing value. It was fear of the disease. It wasn't fear of gays. That was the primary motivator. It is horrible that these people died alone. How many people died alone of COVID? And I screamed about that the whole time. They wouldn't allow loved ones to visit dying people. Was it because of animosity toward COVID victims? No, it wasn't. It was animosity toward the transmissibility of COVID, which they profoundly overstated. It was evil not to let people visit dying parents, for example, in COVID. But what they're describing is it just happened in the last year and a half in the United States of people dying alone. We don't deny the suffering of gays of many gays during the AIDS crisis. They deny the suffering of the unvaccinated. That's the difference. It's an important difference. Go on, please.
Hundreds were buried in anonymity in mass graves. In 1986, 10-year-old Ryan White was kicked out of school, stigmatized for contracting the disease through a blood transfusion.
By the way, doesn't Ryan White prove the point that it wasn't primarily anti-gay animosity? Ryan White was a heterosexual boy. He got it through a transfusion. So it shows it was the whole issue. I can't believe they use Ryan White as an example. Ryan White's fate had nothing to do with being gay. He wasn't gay, or at least we don't know that he was gay. It's never been alleged. There was tremendous fear of AIDS. We'll be back.
The Dennis Prager Show, live from the Relief Factor Pain-Free Studio.
Streaming on Salem Now.
You called your son. You personally promised him you would be here.
Lucas, I don't know how to help you.
Your daddy loves you, you gotta know it, pal.
Prayer is a powerful thing, Ethan. It really does work, if you believe.
What reason does he have to care about some guy who's supposed to be his dad, but he's never around? I can't do it. I can't. I'm not ready for this, man.
I'm done with you.
We all deserve a second chance. Right, Ethan?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
The public would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our politicians are not on the sidewalk right now talking to you?
Don't have no respect.
The old wall randomly turns into a guardrail, followed by miles of open border.
Human trafficking.
That journey is extremely dangerous.
The 7-year-old girl died in the desert.
From the country of India.
A great pillar of the community was killed by a man who had been deported at least twice.
This little urn contains the ashes of my son. His dreams cut short forever.
We're so worried about other countries' problems, and we don't even focus on our own.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
We'll see one young lady identify as transgender, and the next thing you know, 6 or 7 young ladies in that same school are now identifying as transgender.
Children taught at age 5 they can create their gender identity, and it's being celebrated.
Schools are lining up to push the transgender agenda on kids and cut parents out of the equation.
Every cell of their body that has a nucleus is male or female.
We've now seen parents losing custody of their children if they don't go along with this.
We've all been created XY or XX, so that means there's only 2 genders. And so really the battle is against the Creator.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
So I'm going to get back to the way MSNBC today or yesterday covered me. Give you an idea how they lie for a living. It's a proof. First, Sierra Pacific Mortgage. I just want to remind you that there are 2 terrific men, Andrew and Todd, with Sierra Pacific. AndrewandTodd.com is the way to contact them or to call them, 888-888-1172. The rates are so low, I can't imagine why anybody would not look into at least refinancing their house if you have a higher rate than what you can get with people like Andrew and Todd. So whether it's take out money for credit card debt or to expand your house or repairs or help your kids pay for your kids' homeschooling, which is my dream for parents to do, they have more money than their children, which many do, help them homeschool their children financially. Anyway, whatever it is you want to take money out or refinance, period, just to pay off more quickly, AndrewandTodd.com, 888-888-1172, 888-888-1172. So I said on MSNBC, I was talking about the unvaccinated and how they are made pariahs. And I said, during the AIDS crisis, can you imagine if gay men and intravenous drug users... Oh, Newsmax? What did I say? No, I played... Yeah, right, I'm sorry. I meant Newsmax. They played the Newsmax interview. During the AIDS crisis, can you imagine if gay men and intravenous drug users, who were the vast majority of the people with AIDS, had they been pariahs the way the non-vaccinated are? But it would have been inconceivable, and it should have been inconceivable. They should not have been made pariahs. Right? They should not have been made pariahs. That's what I said. So now MSNBC and the left is saying Prager denies that gays were pariahs. The headline on MSNBC, conservative talk show host rewrites AIDS crisis. So now they're talking about Ryan White, the boy, I think he was a hemophiliac, and he got a transfusion and he got AIDS, and kids were afraid to sit next to him. You know why kids were afraid to sit next to him? Thanks to Tony Fauci. Listen to what Tony Fauci told Americans at that time, our guru on medicine.
Starting to see, as we're seeing virtually as the months go by, other groups that can be involved, and seeing it in children is really quite disturbing.
When you say other close contact, give me some examples.
Well, for example, if the close contact of a child is a household contact, perhaps there will be a certain number of cases of individual who are just living with and in close contact with someone with AIDS or at risk of AIDS, who does not necessarily have to have intimate sexual contact or share a needle, but just the ordinary close contact that one sees in normal interpersonal.
All right, so this is Tony Fauci telling Americans, hey, listen, just any contact. Forget sexual contact. Any contact. You can get AIDS from somebody. So what are Americans supposed to think? They believe this phony. They believe him today and they believed him then. This was not anti-gay. There were anti-gay elements, but this is not... Ryan White wasn't gay. He's a kid. Maybe he turned out gay. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know anything about him other than I recall this now that he's being played again. Nor was he an intravenous drug user. That's right. Continue with this is with MSNBC that's mentioning Ryan White. Go on.
So back to Mr. Prager's initial question. How did the majority of America allow themselves to be governed by an irrational fear? I think those with AIDS who were shunned and shamed would like to know. Sadly, his revisionist history is a central tenet of right-wing victimhood.
Right, hold on. Right-wing victimhood and rewriting. I didn't rewrite history one iota. They're rewriting what I said. I showed you from the beginning. They didn't even play my whole sentence. They stopped it before what would have totally undermined everything they said about me. But right-wing victimhood, that can't exist. That's the whole point. Only left-wing victimhood can exist. This is what this is all about. We own victimhood. Go ahead, please.
Best exemplified by people like Green Bay Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers, the new right-wing darling, because while they claim he's a pariah to the quote-unquote woke mob, the reality is he's being called out for what he did, which is lie. With me now is Tim Miller, writer-at-large for The Bulwark, and Michael Harriot, senior writer for theroot.com. Guys, thank you very much for being here. You know, Tim, when I heard what Dennis Prager had to say, I was like, say what now? What gives that every time, you know, right-wingers get bent out of shape and put out, it's always they're the first ones to ever really feel any kind of, you know, being shunned or pushed aside?
Yeah, boy, they love the victim status, don't they, Jonathan? Not a lot of empathy there. You know, look, some of the viewers might be like, well, you know, right-wing talk radio guy says obnoxious thing. Like, why does this, you know, rise to the level of our attention? But here, it's the thing, Dennis Prager is not just some random person. PragerU on YouTube gets tens of millions of views, and on a wide variety of issues. It's indoctrinating people into anti-climate change, you know, kind of views, and is a hoax, and COVID is a hoax, and all.
Okay, hold on. So he's another liar. With what is he with Bulwark? Not surprising. COVID is a hoax. This is a pure lie, my friends. They lie. This is really important for you to hear. When I say truth is not a left-wing value, I bring you proofs of it, illustrations of it virtually every day. This is classic. We have said, anyone at PragerU or me or I on 3 hours of radio a day, COVID is a hoax? Did anything even analogous to it? I had COVID. Did I have a hoax? You lying piece of crap. This is what they put on MSNBC. And people hear it and believe it because that's all they hear. They don't hear me. They didn't invite me on MSNBC. Talk about me for 10 minutes, but they wouldn't invite me on. So I invite me on. Have 10 people come on and say the lies that they want to about me. I'll be happy to confront 10 of you. The odds are much in my favor. You lying crowd at MSNBC and at Bulwark. You lie for a living. COVID is a hoax. Anti-climate change. What does that even mean? Anti-climate change. We don't believe it will destroy the world. That makes us anti-climate change. We have never denied the climate is changing. There isn't a single video at PragerU that says it. They lie for a living. They're paid liars on the left. All of them. Not liberals. Liberals are just weaklings who don't fight the left. But leftists, they lie for a living. 2 years we were lied to by the Times and the Post, right? And CNN and MSNBC about the Russian collusion with the Trump campaign. 100% lie, like COVID is a hoax.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Burka.
That we have this unbelievable upset victory for Glenn Youngkin and the Attorney General and the Lieutenant Governor. Why did the good guys win, Patty?
Because we did use common sense and facts. Here in Loudoun County, the parents were being targeted and blacklisted by elected officials on the school board using constituents to blacklist other constituents. We found out, we made a big stink about it. We said this is un-American. And the more we uncovered through FOIAs, through gathering information, we come to find out that this school board wanted to silence us. They didn't want parents to get involved with their children's education.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
Democrats, I hope you guys try to implement CRT in every single school district across the country, not because it's good for the country, it's super damaging, but voters hate it so much that it's the greatest political gift to conservatives you could imagine. Play cut 57.
George, this is a sonic boom of a wake-up call for Democrats. Biden won Virginia by 10 points just a year ago. He won New Jersey by 16 points. And the big factor is the one you mentioned. Republicans vastly outperformed in the suburbs. That is precisely where the battle for control of Congress will be waged next year in the midterm election.
And so all across the country, you are seeing this trend.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
The public would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our politicians are not on the sidewalk right now talking to you?
Don't have no respect.
The old wall randomly turns into a guardrail, followed by miles of open border.
Human trafficking brought.
That journey is extremely dangerous.
The 7-year-old girl died in the desert.
From the country of India.
A great pillar of the community was killed by a man who had been deported at least twice.
This little urn contains the ashes of my son. His dreams cut short forever.
We're so worried about other countries' problems, and we don't even focus on our own.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
And forgive me, I'll be a little bit tongue-tied because I'm functioning on a few hours sleep, but I don't mind. I'm so ecstatic I can't see straight. I am so proud of the voters of Virginia. I'm proud of the voters in New Jersey. I'm proud of the voters in Minneapolis rejecting the insanity of abolishing the police department. A wave of sanity swept across the land. We're getting our country back. And you need to sit back and appreciate it. You need to let that soak in. We're taking our country back from the radical crazies who have hijacked it. And you need to enjoy the moment.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Pretty good, huh? Pretty smoking gun stuff, isn't it? Dennis Prager rewrites history. And PragerU says COVID is a hoax. They lie about us because it's the only way to attack people like me is to lie about me. I promote good things, good values. I tell the truth. And so you have to lie about me to attack me. That's it. You have to change what I say. You have to corrupt it. All these people using Ryan White as an example of how gays were made pariahs when Ryan White wasn't gay. Why would they use Ryan White as an example? The pariah status that took place was not because they were gay. It was partially. There was homophobia. There's no question. But it was also because people like Fauci, Tony Fauci, told Americans that you can, just being in the presence of somebody with AIDS can give you AIDS. So people believe that. They keep speaking about the gays with AIDS who died alone. They weren't prohibited by the hospital from getting visitors. COVID people were prevented by hospitals from having visitors and had to die alone in the past year. They died alone because their relatives and friends were afraid to visit them. Because Tony Fauci told them, you can contract it having no sexual contact, just being in their presence, just close contact. Those were his words. So it wasn't animosity, it was fear of dying if you're in their proximity. Of course, it's amazing how Fauci gets away with anything. So I'm attacked, and they love Fauci. Pretty amazing, isn't it? Do we have more? I think we have a little more on MSNBC.
That they've just thought so little. I mean, he lived through the AIDS crisis for starters. So the idea that someone like that could run such an influential, quasi university, whatever you want to call it, online video program, and not have had even taken a moment to just think that could come out of your mouth without even at all reflecting on what happened with those in the gay community in the 80s and 90s and beyond, who suffered just unbelievable indignity when it comes to AIDS, I think reflects just how bad the rot is all the way down. And just one of the things, Jonathan, to be honest, I think that it shows this an entirely, revisionist history that the entire right wants to run on this. I don't mind, if there are candidates that I work for that had changes of heart on this, and we want people to have changes of heart. But to have change of heart, you have to recognize what was wrong in the past and how people were wronged, and reflect on that and change. To pretend like your old hateful views didn't exist, and to pretend like the suffering of people didn't exist, is not a way to move forward. It's a way to just absolve yourself of any sin and turn yourself into the victim.
Right. And Michael, this is happening.
All right. So that was it. What was revisionist about what I wrote? I said they were pariahs and it was a terrible thing. But he didn't hear it because MSNBC cut me off before the last two sentences. God, these guys at Bulwark, it's an amazing thing. Listen, was it the Lincoln Project people? Also a bunch of theoretical conservatives who went in front of Youngkin's headquarters in Virginia and acted like they were racists in support of Youngkin. That is how much they hate. I guess there's no hate like the hate of people who left your movement. They have to prove to themselves that their decision was moral. So the only way to do that is to portray conservatives as evil. That's what another guy, Jonathan Last, did. Was it in Bulwark? Or I don't know. I don't think it was Bulwark. I don't know where it was. Is Dennis Prager stupid or evil? See? This is a guy I actually had on my show. I looked it up. He was on my show in 2014 for a book he wrote. But he hates those of us who have stayed conservative, Republican, and support Republican candidates, including Donald Trump. For those people, that is the defining element of evil. If you supported Donald Trump when he was president. So this is all clarifying what is happening. Sir? ReliefFactor.com will give you a tremendous amount of information on a tremendous product. Doctors created this to relieve people of joint and muscle pain. It's a sort of miracle. That's what I think of Relief Factor, because it's so effective for about 70% of the people who take it, maybe 80%. But it's an incredible percentage of people who renew their subscription, as it were, to Relief Factor. Try for 3 weeks for $19.95 at ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384.
Streaming on Salem Now.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
The only way we separate the good ideas from the bad ideas is to be free to say whatever we want about them.
There's no free speech for fascists.
Your posts on Facebook, Twitter, and social media will be saved to shame.
Creating an atmosphere of fear and repression, and it's gonna bust.
You cannot think differently.
It makes it difficult for you to learn from other people.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
We'll see one young lady identify as transgender, and the next thing you know, 6 or 7 young ladies in that same school are now identifying as transgender.
Children taught at age 5 they can create their gender identity, and it's being celebrated.
Schools are lining up to push the transgender agenda on kids and cut parents out of the equation.
Every cell of their body that has a nucleus is male or female.
We've now seen parents losing custody of their children if they don't go along with this.
We've all been created XY or XX, so that means there's only 2 genders. And so really the battle is against the creator.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
You called your son. You personally promised him you would be here.
Lucas, I don't know how to help you.
Your daddy loves you, you gotta know it, pal.
Prayer is a powerful thing, Ethan. It really does work, if you believe.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Well, I have dealt with only one, MSNBC's coverage of me. None of them invite you. CNN attacked me. What was the CNN on? Well, I don't remember. Oh, that was on COVID, I think. They never invite you on. Isn't that interesting? They can say whatever they want, but so what do you say? Do you have a defense? Mr. Prager? I don't blame them for not having me on, though. They would look so foolish. They would actually come out as liars because I would show that MSNBC cut off my comments on Newsmax. 2 sentences that would have completely undone the lies they said about me. But truth is not a left-wing value, and that's the way it is. Do want to remind people, though, that there is a pariah status for the unvaccinated. They want separate sections for unvaccinated at sporting events. Do they have that at Dodger Stadium? Sean, are you familiar with that? I don't know. I'm asking. Did they this past summer have a section where the unvaccinated had to sit? They were talking about it. I don't know if it actually transpired. Did you go to any Dodger games? No. Why didn't you go to any Dodger games? What? They what? They were checking to see that you had been vaccinated. Oh, so they were checking for vaccination. Okay, so the question that I have is, if you weren't, did they just simply ban you from entering? By the way, did that happen to gays during the 80s and 90s? You can't go to a Dodger game? I mean, why does it deny the suffering of gays in the 80s and 90s to acknowledge how terrible it is for the unvaccinated today, and it is done on an official level? I mean, if this mandate, which is unbelievable, from OSHA now, you get fired, you lose all of your income, and can't get, I think they punish you so much, if I'm not mistaken, in some cases you can't get unemployment benefits. But no, hey, right-wing victimhood. That's not victimhood? Now, you may say the unvaccinated deserve it, which is what most people who hate the unvaccinated say. You deserve it. You should be ostracized. You should not have an income. Some have said, look, that they should not be treated in hospitals. Rapists, murderers, torturers, they should be treated in hospitals. But people who are not vaccinated, they should not. A lot of sick stuff going on in our society. Paul in Detroit, Michigan, hello.
Hello, Mr. Prager. As a former, I have great respect for you. As a former Democrat, a disgusted UAW Democrat, let me just say this. I think they need to be sued for, number one, slander, and if there's a transcript that's out there, sue them for libel also. I am just, my jaw dropped when I heard you play what they played, and then hearing the real story.
Right. I'm glad. Yes. You give.
I'm an independent guy. I'm an independent-minded voter now because of the damage they've done to just to what they've done to give our industries to China. My party was complicit in that. Okay. Now, as far as the cultural war goes, they need to be put in their place, and I hope you sue them for slander. I'm sick of it.
Thank you, sir. It's actually, on a human basis, I want you to know it is good for me to hear from people, I heard what you said. Wow. And that should be followed by a wow. They cut you off before the last two sentences, which would have invalidated their entire program about Dennis Prager. Yeah, but not that wow. It would be the wow of, oh my God, wow. God, are they dishonest? That's the way it works. So I have always spent my life trying to figure out the whys of life, W-H-Y. So why are they so angry at me? It's because I had the audacity to say that people on the right can be victims. That it's much more than just a gay issue. That's what it is. What? The unvaccinated? Right-wing victimhood. I keep hearing that. There's nothing wrong. Nothing's happening to the unvaccinated. It's like, do these people live in the same country as I do? Nothing's happening? I couldn't get pizza yesterday. I couldn't eat pizza in a pizzeria. Yes, that's right. I don't live, thank God, in L.A. City. I live in L.A. County, which is bad enough. But I was in the city of Los Angeles yesterday, and after working at PragerU, I went next door to a pizzeria. And the guy said to me, "Can I see your vaccination certificate?" I said, "I don't have one. I had COVID," which of course meant nothing to the man. And he was very sweet. I'm not blaming him at all, because you can't eat in here. But there are tables outside. Now, in L.A., tables outside is pretty much 12 months a year okay. But please don't give me this lie. In New York City, you can't go into the restaurant. And what are they going to do in the winter? Eat outside? There's no pariah status of the unvaccinated? Well, you can't be on the left if you tell the truth. You leave the left when you treasure truth. I believe that with all my heart and soul. A whole lifetime has confirmed that to me. They make up their own truths like Lenin did.
The Dennis Prager Show.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
There's about 57 Muslim states in the world. There's one Jewish state.
The massive ingathering of Jews in the last 150 years back to the land is absolutely unprecedented.
They say that there's no greater sign of redemption coming than the Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
As a Christian, I've always supported Israel's claim to the Holy Land. To me, the Palestinians were just getting in the way of God's plan.
300,000 Palestinians are unemployed.
In spite of all the years of conflict, there's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Judge Thomas, you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. I was under constant attack. You're not really black because you're not doing what we expect black people to do. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Dennis Prager here, Los Feliz, California. JD, hello.
Hi, Dennis. How you doing?
Okay.
So, I agree with you on 90% of things, but there's some things I can't agree with you on. And, one of them is the transmission rate of COVID is a lot higher than AIDS, and that's why you see the pariah or the social pariah.
You're right. You're 100% right. But you're not denying the pariah status of the unvaccinated. You may say that we deserve it, but that's not the issue. The issue is that you acknowledge. On MSNBC, they don't even acknowledge. The whole left denies that there's a pariah status to the unvaccinated. You don't deny it.
Yeah, I don't agree with them cutting you off either. I did not agree with them cutting you off.
Okay, all right. Listen, It's the last segment, so I don't have a lot of time. The truth is, we don't disagree at all on this. At least not what you have said. I couldn't agree with you more. Of course, COVID is more transmissible than AIDS. That's the reason I said that the heterosexual AIDS crisis was manufactured by the left. I said it at the time. Heterosexual AIDS in the United States was minimal. It's exactly right. And among lesbians, it didn't exist. So much for anti-gay. And I said that then too. But they don't quote that either. Tony in Orange, California, hello.
Mr. Prager, good morning. God bless you, all the veterans, President past. My father and his three brothers were in World War II. My one brother, my uncle, stayed on in Korea. They patrolled in Vietnam, and I draw my values from them, which is why I listen to your show. And my one uncle was in a LCI, Land Craft Infantry in the Pacific, and he was the one taking the soldiers off the transport ships that your father delivered.
Wow. Wow. Well, thank you for calling about that. And yes, and it touches me. Yes, if you have those values, I could understand why you would enjoy this show. We have just a few seconds, but I do want to go to Dan in Brunswick, Ohio. Hi, Dan.
Dennis Prager, can you hear me?
I can.
Hey, it is a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you.
I feel like I'm talking to a celebrity. So make it quick. While I was on hold, you actually made my point.
Well, no, I want you to know, and that's why I took you. I took your point. You're the one who gave it to me.
And that's why I was going to say I feel more privileged than I do uncredited. So thank you for that. But my point was, for them to argue the fact that the AIDS victims' deaths were more unjust than the COVID deaths is absolute, a complete lie.
Right. Well, anyway, your point about why they were alone was very powerful. Thank you all for listening.